Season 2 of the Anodized Chef has officially begun. Thank you for joining us. Today, check this out. We're going to do a pan-seared sea scallop. We're going to do it Sambuca style. We're going to flame it up with a little Sambuca, put it in some cream sauce, and serve it over a risotto. Stay with us. This is going to be incredible. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. This is the first episode of Season 2. We'd like to welcome back Worry the Bones. Really looking forward to checking those guys out live. I just love their bluesy sound. You can check those guys out at worrythebones.com. They are absolutely incredible, and they're right here out of Massachusetts, so it's definitely worth a look. But getting into the food, we talked about the scallops, and we talked about the pan-seared with Sambuca, but I wanted to go over a couple of key ingredients that we're using here. And one of the things one of the main ingredients in it is the anise root, otherwise known as fennel. And yes, they're both the same thing. But anise root is actually the main ingredient in Sambuca. What they do is they take grain alcohol and they take the oils from the anise roots and they actually refine it and they put it into that, and that's what gives it that real licoricey flavor. You almost get that taste of licorice on the tongue when you eat this. And it's actually used in a lot of classical Italian dishes. But there's also, this top part here is used as a garnish. Sometimes they take this piece here and they trim it up and they'll decorate the plate. We may just do just that as well. But it's the bottom part here that almost looks like celery, that what we do is we trim this root out here, the stem part, and then we'll slice it, shave it real thin. And then what that does is it adds that, like I said, it adds that licorice essence to the dish. And that's a big part of, the reason why I like to put it in a big part of the dish. The reason why I like to put it in there is because it gives it a bite. Get a little bit of crispness as well as the flavor from the alcohol that we're going to flame off, but it adds a little bit of a crunch to it, which is another dimension of flavor, another profile of flavor. So that's the anise root / fennel seed, and we're actually going to cut that up, fennel root. We're going to cut that up for you. I wanted to talk a little bit about sea scallops. And the thing about sea scallops is they're different than bay scallops. The bay scallops are the real small ones, and they're also a different price point. Now these guys here, you have to do this when you're doing seared. You can do a nice baked scallop with the bay, but with the pan-seared scallops, you got to stay with the sea scallops, and they're a lot bigger. You can get them in different sizes. If you go into the supermarket, you'll see 2130s or 3140s. And what that means is there's that many scallops per pound. So if the 2130s, which is what these are, there'll be a bigger scallop than the 3140s because the 3140s are, again, 31 per pound. So 21 per pound, they're going to obviously be bigger by nature because you're going to have fewer of them in that pound. So that's the difference between those. But you want to take a look at these, and when you get them, you want to try to get them as dry as possible. So what you want to do is you want to take a paper towel and you just kind of want to pat them dry because you don't want to have any moisture. And ideally what you want to do is you want to buy them already dry, and preferably fresh. You can get frozen and you can defrost them slow in your fridge overnight, but remember, this is an important step because if they're too wet, the water is going to have a negative reaction to the oil when you try to go in the pan with them. So you really want to pat them dry and at least have a good surface area on them that's dry. That'll give a nice sear as well. The scallop has a muscle on the end of it. You can really get in there and look, there's a little tendon on the side. And when you're doing a dish like this, you really want to take that off of there and discard it. Now, if you're making a seafood stock or something like that, you can hang on to it and throw that into that seafood stock. It'll be a nice accompaniment to a lobster stock or lobster bisque or that sort of thing. But you want to have that membrane off of there when you're doing the seared scallop. So I would highly recommend just kind of after you pat dry them, kind of go through them and just make sure that membrane is off, because it's very chewy. A lot of times you go when you get fried scallops in a seafood restaurant and they don't bother to take the time. And to me, that's a little detail that tells me whether a place is really on their game or not. They kind of go through and they pick those things off of it. And it just says something about the performance of the staff and the quality of food that you're about to get. So that being said, that's the details on the sea scallops versus the bay scallops. And again, I like the bigger scallop, and they're going to sear up nice. We're going to season them and pan fry them in just a second, but I want to get my pan going here. And once I get that going, we'll get the oil good and hot, and then we'll go in there. So what I did was I actually split this fennel in half so you can kind of see where the stem is in there, and we want to get that out of there. So we're going to go in there with a knife, and we're just going to kind of take it in a V. Now be very careful with a sharp knife, but we're just going to take it in a V-shaped pattern and just kind of trim that nugget right out of there and see how it pops right out. And we'll just put that over there. Now it's okay if there's still a little bit left in there. We just don't want the whole thing in there because it's really kind of it's like a rough stem. It's like the core of an apple almost, you know. All right, so now that we've got that trimmed out, now what we do is we take it and we just kind of like I said, we want to almost shave. Just kind of go very, 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 as thin as you can with a knife. Just watch your fingers. As very, very thin as you can. And we're going to just kind of shave it into thin, thin strips. And that's what it looks like. It even looks like celery almost when it's cut up. And really what we want to try to do is like I said, get it as thin as you can, because you don't want big, thick pieces in there, because this doesn't break down as easy as, say, like a celery or something else. You want it to be kind of pliable. You want it to be able to bite into it and have it break in your teeth. So the thinner, the better. And I've actually already got some of that prepped up here. So I did all that while the pan was getting hot. So now we're good. And we're going to switch gears and get right into the scallops here. And I have a little bit of olive oil here. We're just going to coat the bottom of a 10-inch skillet here with olive oil. And I added probably about a tablespoon. And that's about all we need. Just again, we just want to coat the bottom. Now I've got these scallops that are nice and dry. The membrane's cleaned off of them. I'm going to take a little bit of our edge. I'm just going to sprinkle a little edge on them. And I also have some fresh cracked black peppercorns. I think it's just a nice little signature to the dish. It gives it a nice little peppery bite. And it sears up really nice. It looks nice when it's seared too. So I did that just on one side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be very, very careful with this oil. I would recommend if you don't feel, if you're nervous about going in there like I am, use a pair of tongs. I'll actually demonstrate how to get out of this. So that way you feel a little more comfortable. But remember, you want to turn them over and put that peppercorn and edge seasoned side down. Right in the pan. And I'm going to go old fashioned way. With the tool that the Sicilians invented. All right. And once, the trick to searing a good sear is once they're in there, let them stay there for a minute. Let them get in there and don't try to move them around, because you want them to stick to that pan a little bit, because that's where all that beautiful golden brown color is going to come from. So let them go. And what I did was I found a little spatula. You can use any spatula that you have in the house. I just use a little pie server. And what we're going to do is we're just going to get up under there and give them a clip. Well, while they're on the face down side, give them a kiss of the edge again, because now you're coating the other side. And that cracked black peppercorn that we talked about, put a little bit of that on there too. Now you don't want to go too much, especially if you're not a huge fan of pepper. You can even leave this step out if you wanted to. However, I love black pepper. So let's just see how one of these scallops looks. Yeah, these are just a few more. My bad, I turned the pan down a little bit while I was doing the fennel root. See how that looks. Yeah, that's getting there. You're really looking for that golden brown color. We're going to let these bad boys go for just another minute. Another trick too that you can do while these are still browning is you can dust them with a little bit of flour. It's kind of cheating a little. I don't think they need it, because it'll also help to thicken the sauce a little bit too. So if you want to do it, it's okay. But I like the fresh scallop as opposed to this is more. If you start putting flour in it, to me it's like almost like fried scallop at that point. And I just want pan seared. We're gonna end up deglazing. Oh, there it is. Yeah. You want to try to be careful, because now the brown's coming out on it, so that's perfect. And it's okay if there's little pieces of scallop still stuck to the pan, because why? Because we talked about it in prior episodes. What's going to happen is, when we deglaze, which means to add a liquid to the pan, all those little naughty brown bits are going to come up and enhance that sauce. That flavor of that sauce is going to be awesome. Oh yeah, that one was a nice one. Just a couple more. I'll put these other four aside. I'll do that after. I didn't want to crowd the pan too much. And that's another important step too. You don't want to overcrowd the stuff that's in there. Now, very important. Now that we've added the scallops and we've flipped them, now we want to start to get all of our other ingredients in there. So I'm going to add some of that fennel that I shaved up in there. And I'm not going to add a lot. I'm going to add probably about a half a cup of that amount there. And that's, like I said, combined, that's probably about a pound of scallops that I have there. So we're going to add about, what did I say, about a half cup, I'd say, about the fennel seed. And I'm also going to put some fresh spinach in there. This is baby spinach, but you can clean some jumbo spinach if you like. And I put about a cup of fresh spinach in there. And I've got some chiffonade basil. And I'm only going to take probably about a tablespoon of chiffonade basil. What we're going to do is we're going to actually add that to it's going to enhance the sauce. And I've got about a teaspoon of fresh minced garlic. I'm going to add that underneath as well, because once I add the Sambuca, what's going to happen now is we're going to flame it off, and then that's how the sauce is going to start to be created. So I'm going to take this now, and I'm just going to pull it away from the fire. That's a very important step. You never want to add a high concentrate. Well, actually, if you watch the Venetian Fair episode at the end of last season, you'll see that when we played about the banana foster. But the Sambuca has a higher alcohol content, so you want to be very, very careful. So you want to add, probably for this batch, you're going to add probably about a quarter cup, and you're about to see craziness happen. This is going to be worse than the Venetian Fair episode. Actually, that wasn't too bad. I think I let it reduce a little before I put it on there. So that's, now we're just going to let that flame off a little bit. And one of the things you want to be careful of is the spinach burning. So I like to try to get that right down into the juice, because it will crisp up on you and turn into little spinach potato chips. So just be careful. It looks like it's great. The alcohol's starting to flame off. So the next thing we're going to add is, I've got some cream here. I'm going to add probably about a cup of light cream right to that. And that just settles everything down. It's going to smooth it out. Now I'll tell you something. The flavor of Sambuca and cream together, we're going to finish it with some butter. It's out of control. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go in there and kind of liven up the bottom of that pan a little bit and scrape it with that spatula that we had. And the reason why we want to scrape it is because we want that scallop flavor, those brown bits, like I was saying earlier, to get up into that sauce and be a beautiful, beautiful finish on that. And so while I'm doing this, I'll talk a little bit about the risotto that we did. I actually made a house risotto that's very similar to the risotto that we did in the chicken piccata episode going way back to last year. So if you're really looking for the recipe on that risotto, you can check that episode out. I think it was episode 2 or 3, but it was the chicken piccata one where we actually made the risotto on camera. So, and that's what we did, is we just took that same format of risotto, made it the same way. Veggies might be a little different. Really, you can use whatever kind of veggies you want, but it's the same idea. So, and it feels like we got all those scallops. Oh yes. Oh, the smell is out of control. Bob, I don't know how you can stand there and not say anything to how it smells right now. So now what we're going to do is, I'm going to turn this down because I don't want it to roll too strong. We do want that cream to reduce a little bit because we want it to also help to thicken up a little bit as it reduces. But we don't want it to over, to boil too much and actually separate the cream. We want it to kind of simmer a little. So we're going to settle things down. And the last ingredient that we're going to add to the scallops is butter. And it wouldn't be the Anodized chef if it was healthy. So actually, that's not true. We did have a couple of healthy episodes, but it does seem like we do a lot of unhealthy cooking. I'm sorry, but it's delicious. So stay with us. I just put about a teaspoon in there, and I'm going to go ahead and put another one in there of unsalted butter. And then what I want to do is, the fennel is perfect. It's still a little crispy, but it's cooked. You don't want it to overcook so it's mush, because that's not really what you want to eat. You want to eat something, you want that texture in there. It actually adds to the dish. It's really, really good. So I'm going to take a tasting spoon that I have here and just give this sauce a little taste. Oh! Now, don't be surprised. You do get a little bit of a licorice taste, and it is a little bit sweeter than you'd expect it to be. But don't get shocked by that, because that's part of the sauce. I want you to experience it. Really just kind of expect it and take it in. But what you get is you get a sweet cream, you get a seafood taste from those scallops, you get the fresh gardening taste from the fennel and from the spinach, and you get that nice peppery taste from the seasonings that we rubbed on the outside of those scallops. It's absolutely incredible, I'm telling you. But don't be surprised by the sweet, because that's kind of what this dish is supposed to be about. All right, so now we've reduced it down, and now we're going to go ahead and shut this down because we don't want it to cook anymore. But the next phase is going to get into the actual plating of it and how we serve it over that risotto. So check this is going to be awesome. So the risotto, like we talked about from a prior episode, I've already got a batch of that done up here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take probably about a cup and a half of this said risotto, and we're going to set it right down in the middle here. And what we want to do is, I love risotto, it's one of my favorite foods. And we're just going to set it right in the middle. And then we're going to make a nest. I'm going to set the rest of this down here. We're going to make a nest in here. Just kind of move it around. I'm going to get in here so you can see it. And then what we'll do is we're just going to move it around and kind of lay it flat almost and hollow up the middle. Then what we'll do is we'll take our pan. Be careful, sometimes that handle's hot. But we'll take our pan and now you just want to lay those scallops throughout. Oh, yeah, with nice brown sear marks on there. Oh, it smells. And we want to get some of the vegetable love in there too. Sprinkle some of the spinach and the fennel in there, and then we just drizzle the sauce. Show you this one. We want to drizzle the sauce right over the top. Yeah, because that flavor, that buttery, sweet, licorice flavor will go right into that risotto and just be absolutely incredible. Then what we'll do is we'll just tidy up the side of the rim of the dish here, and then we could take some, like I said about this, is how some people use it as a garnish. Just take a big sprig of this. Now don't confuse this in your refrigerator as dill, because I know it looks a lot similar, it's very similar looking to dill, but just it's definitely quite different. So put it in there, and voila, we have Pan Seared Scallops with Sambuca Cream Sauce over a nice risotto. And I'll go this way here too, so you can check that out. That is absolutely incredible. It's one of my favorite dishes. One of my favorite dishes. And like I said, that sauce is nice and savory, but it's also sweet and it's creamy. So there's a lot of different layers for you to kind of experience here, and I definitely recommend it. So that's that, and we'll talk about the wine next. So the wine that we chose for the episode today is actually a return around. It's by Schmidt-Sonnegan, and we actually did a Riesling last year by these guys. But this one's called Relax, and we picked a nice big bottle of it. It's 2010. Same German Riesling format, but we figured with the new label and the new year and the new bottle, we figured it was worth a check out, especially when we've got such a sweet dish. The Pan Seared Scallops and that Sambuca, and it's kind of bright, it's very nice, so we thought this would go really well with a nice summertime saute. And I'm a big fan of it actually. I'm not, I don't drink sweet wines all the time, but this one doesn't drink too bad. It's not like candy like some of the wines my wife drinks. It does have a little bit of dryness on the edge, which is really nice, and I like that. I like that a lot. And it's not overly sweet, which is another thing too. It's almost grapefruity. You get a little bit of tartness on that too. But as we always say, we're not going to change anything this year. Don't even think about it. Thanks again to Worry the Bones. Thank you for joining us in our magic, madness, and mayhem. We'll see you next time.